What if cancer just disappeared? No more chemo, no more funerals, no more waiting rooms, test results, or helpless prayers. One miracle drug, one universal cure. And just like that, the deadliest disease in modern history is wiped out. It sounds like the greatest day in human history. But the moment cancer vanishes, everything changes. And not all of it for the better. Because curing cancer doesn't just save lives, it disrupts systems, rewrites futures, and forces humanity to confront what it truly means to live longer and what we might lose along the way. Cancer has haunted humanity for centuries. It's taken mothers, fathers, children, ripping lives apart with terrifying randomness. Billions have been poured into research, treatments, and desperate last hopes. It's become more than a disease. It's a symbol of mortality itself. Now imagine the unimaginable. Scientists finally cracked the code. A universal cure is discovered, not just for one type, but all forms of cancer. It's fast, it's permanent, and it works on everyone. At first, the world erupts in joy. Streets flood with celebration. News outlets run non-stop coverage. It's hailed as the single greatest medical breakthrough of all time. Families are reunited with hope. Hospitals clear out entire wings. Entire industries breathe a sigh of relief or brace for collapse. But beneath the surface of this miracle, a quiet shift begins. Life expectancy soars. Healthcare systems start buckling, not from disease, but from too much success. Economies surge in some places, falter in others. And an even more difficult question arises. If we've conquered the one disease that defined fear, what happens next? Let's start at ground zero, the healthcare industry. Because when cancer dies, a whole medical empire dies with it. The moment the cure is released, hospitals across the world enter a strange new phase. Not of emergency, but of quiet. Oncology departments are shuttered. Cancer wards empty. Radiation equipment, chemotherapy chairs, and diagnostic labs suddenly become obsolete overnight. The global medical industry, worth trillions, begins to wobble. Not from collapse, but from transformation. For decades, cancer care has been one of the most resource-intensive sectors in healthcare. From diagnostic imaging and blood work to multi-year treatment regimens, cancer absorbed colossal amounts of time, manpower, and money. In the United States alone, cancer treatment generates over $200 billion per year. With a universal cure, that stream vanishes in a flash. Oncologists, radiologists, cancer-focused researchers, pharmaceutical developers, millions of professionals find their specialties suddenly irrelevant. Entire academic institutions built around cancer research lose funding. Charities like the American Cancer Society or Cancer Research UK must shift or dissolve entirely. And then there's Big Pharma. Countless companies built billion-dollar empires off cancer drugs, chemotherapy agents, immunotherapies, radiation machines. With the cure freely available and universally effective, their most profitable pipeline vanishes. Some companies pivot to age-related disease treatments. Others fail to adapt fast enough and collapse, triggering stock crashes and panic in biotech-heavy economies. Insurance companies, too, are thrown into chaos. Cancer has long been one of the most expensive conditions to insure. With it gone, healthcare premiums drop in the short term, but new actuarial models must be created from scratch. Suddenly, insurance firms have to recalibrate risk based on new diseases, extended lifespans, and a radically altered patient base. And yet, as the dust settles, a new era begins. Freed from cancer's chokehold, the healthcare system can now redirect resources toward other chronic conditions, like Alzheimer's, autoimmune diseases, and rare genetic disorders. Mental health, long underfunded, finally receives overdue attention. A surge of new biotech startups emerges, racing to tackle the next great frontier in medicine: regeneration, anti-aging, and brain longevity. Medical schools revise their entire curricula. No more oncology rotations. Instead, students study gerosians, preventative care, and high-efficiency diagnostics for a longer-living population. Healthcare infrastructure shifts toward long-term wellness instead of emergency treatment. Countries that once struggled under the weight of cancer-related costs, especially developing nations, begin to flourish. No longer funneling limited resources into a battle they were always losing. But with all this progress comes new problems. Because when people stop dying from cancer, they start living longer than ever before. And that's where things really start to get complicated. With cancer gone, something extraordinary happens. People start living much, much longer. Within a decade, global life expectancy shoots up by an average of 10 to 15 years, and in some countries, even more. People who once braced for the possibility of dying in their 60s or 70s are now planning for their 90s, 100s, or beyond. Retirement communities begin to resemble entire small cities. The age curve of humanity skews dramatically upward. At first, it feels like a miracle. Grandparents attend their great-grandchildren's weddings. Lifelong passions are finally pursued with decades of borrowed time. But soon, society begins to strain under the weight of its newfound longevity. Social security systems and pension plans, already stretched thin, start collapsing. These systems were never designed to support a population living so long without dying. Retirement age creeps higher, first to 70, then 75, and beyond. In some countries, mandatory retirement is abolished altogether just to maintain economic functionality. Workplaces shift into multi-generational ecosystems, where 25-year-olds and 85-year-olds compete for the same positions. And with more people staying alive, promotions slow, job turnover drops, and younger generations struggle to climb the professional ladder. Housing becomes an unexpected crisis. Fewer people are dying, but more are being born. Cities swell. Real estate prices explode. The global housing market faces a shortage of historic proportions as families begin to house multiple generations for longer spans of time, sometimes under one roof. Education systems adapt. With longer lives, people now pursue multiple careers over time, going back to school in their 60s or 70s to retrain for emerging industries. Lifelong learning becomes not just a luxury, but a necessity. Meanwhile, the booming field of longevity science takes center stage. With cancer eliminated, the next frontier is aging itself. Billionaires and governments invest billions into life extension technology, treatments for telomere degradation, cellular repair, and neuroregeneration. What began as the war on cancer quietly evolves into the war on time. But not everyone is thrilled. With longer life comes longer suffering for many. Aging still exists. Dementia, arthritis, and organ failure remain unsolved. And in poorer nations, longer lifespans without adequate support infrastructure only mean prolonged poverty, extended illness, and a growing burden on younger caregivers. And then there's the existential toll. If humans no longer fear death by cancer, what does it mean to live a complete life? Does death feel more distant or more terrifying? If you knew you could live 110 years, how would that change the way you love, work, or take risks? While the philosophical questions grow, so do the financial stakes. Because a world without cancer doesn't just live longer. It works harder, produces more, and starts to unlock staggering economic potential. A world without cancer doesn't just heal, it profits, and fast. Within the first few years, the global economy experiences a ripple effect unlike anything seen before. Healthcare systems, once strained by the cost of cancer care, now redirect trillions in resources. In the US alone, the savings exceed $200 billion annually, money that's no longer spent on chemotherapy, hospital stays, specialist consultations, or late-stage palliative care. Governments reinvest. Some direct these newfound funds into infrastructure, education, and renewable energy. Others pour it into longevity research, AI integration in medicine, and mental health services. The healthcare sector, forced to reinvent itself, gives rise to entirely new industries: life optimization clinics, neural health centers, and age delay tech startups. The private sector booms. A healthier population means fewer sick days, longer working lives, and extended consumer participation. People spend more, travel more, and take more entrepreneurial risks now that the looming threat of cancer-related financial ruin is gone. Stock markets soar, especially in sectors tied to wellness, preventative medicine, and biotech. Nations that were previously burdened by poor healthcare infrastructure experience surges in productivity. For developing countries, it's a once-in-a-century leap forward. But with the good comes imbalance. Mass layoffs ripple through pharma companies, insurance firms, and hospital networks overly dependent on cancer care. The workforce must rapidly retool, shifting millions of displaced specialists into new roles or entirely different fields. Not everyone transitions smoothly. And while some countries ride the wave of prosperity, others struggle to keep up. Nations that relied heavily on foreign aid for cancer care now face a different crisis. What to do with the extended lifespans of citizens without parallel economic growth? Wealthier nations dominate longevity industries, while poorer countries risk becoming longevity backwaters, unable to provide new-age medical access for aging populations. Wealth inequality deepens in subtle new ways. Not by who has the cure, it's universally available, but by who has the time and money to make use of the extra decades. The rich don't just live longer, they live better longer. They learn more skills, build more assets, accumulate more influence. Meanwhile, the working class finds itself grinding for another 30 years just to maintain survival. And then comes the migration wave. Millions begin relocating, seeking countries with better long-life infrastructure, more generous pension reforms, or cutting-edge aged care facilities. Borders tighten, visa policies change. The definition of a developed country shifts once more, this time toward how well it manages a post-cancer society. Still, despite all the growing pains, one truth remains: the world has never seen a boom like this. But as wallets grow fatter and futures stretch longer, something unexpected begins to shift. Not in systems or markets, but in the human heart. Because with cancer gone, the way we think, feel, and relate to each other begins to transform in surprising ways. Cancer wasn't just a disease, it was a defining part of the human experience. It shaped how people understood suffering, mortality, courage, and even identity. So when it disappears, something profound begins to unravel beneath the surface of society. At first, there's overwhelming joy. Generations who lived in fear of cancer, watching parents, siblings, or friends waste away, suddenly breathe easier. The anxiety surrounding regular checkups vanishes. People no longer brace for the worst when the doctor calls. Survivorship stops being a battle cry, and remission becomes an outdated word. But as the cultural memory of cancer fades, so too does the collective trauma that once united millions. The countless fundraisers, awareness campaigns, pink ribbons, and charity marathons gone. Whole industries of grief, counseling, and support organizations dissolve or must reinvent themselves entirely. In their place rises something new: hope. Optimism begins to color the human outlook. People plan further into the future: careers, families, creative dreams. There's a sharp psychological pivot away from survive to thrive. Mental health also shifts in strange ways. For some, the fear of cancer had been a motivator to live meaningfully, urgently. With that looming threat removed, existential questions grow louder. What's the purpose of life when death no longer feels like it's breathing down your neck? Suicide rates don't drop the way many expect, they simply change. The reasons behind them evolve. More people struggle with the pressure to make their extended life count. New anxieties emerge. Am I wasting my extra years? What if I live a long, meaningless life? Meanwhile, personal relationships enter uncharted territory. Marriages that once lasted till death do us part now stretch across 70, 80, even 100 years. That's not always a good thing. Divorce rates spike in older generations as people discover they've outgrown each other during their extended time together. New forms of long-term companionship emerge: multi-partner life arcs, spiritual companionships, generational love contracts. Friendship networks and family structures evolve. People outlive their peer groups, then form second and third social circles across decades. Siblings born 30 years apart is no longer strange. Grandparents who were once assumed to have 10, 15 years with grandchildren now spend 40 or 50. Even death itself loses some of its mystery. Without cancer as a primary killer, people become more familiar with the slow decline of aging, dementia, organ failure, and the quiet fade of time. Funerals become rarer, and when they happen, they often celebrate centuries of life. Art, literature, and storytelling adapt too. Gone are the heartbreaking cancer arcs in films and books. New stories emerge, tales about life after life, about second and third acts, about starting over at 70 and reinventing yourself at 90. But not everything is hopeful. There's an emotional void where cancer used to live. For decades, battling cancer gave people a sense of strength, community, and purpose. Now that purpose is missing. Society, for better or worse, must find new stories to define what it means to struggle and what it means to survive. But just as the human heart begins to heal and reshape, a darker question arises. Who decides how this cure is distributed, and who really gets to live in this new world? A universal cure sounds perfect. But in a world built on inequality, even miracles can become battlegrounds. At first, the discovery is hailed as a global humanitarian triumph. Leaders pledge immediate worldwide access. Headlines declare cancer cured for everyone. But beneath the celebration, cracks begin to show. Who gets it first? Wealthy countries secure early access, stockpiling doses, deploying logistics, and treating citizens in weeks. Meanwhile, poorer nations, those hit hardest by cancer with the weakest infrastructure, are left waiting. Global health organizations scramble to close the gap, but black markets arise. People begin traveling, legally or not, to nations with easier access. Medical tourism explodes. Desperation follows. And even with the cure, inequality persists. Remote villages without cold chain systems can't store the drug. War zones can't deliver it safely. Politicians in unstable regions hoard doses for allies or as bargaining chips in global negotiations. A cure meant for everyone becomes, at least for a time, a privilege. Philosophers, ethicists, and religious leaders clash in public debates. Some view the cure as divine providence. Others argue it disrupts the natural order. Is it playing God to eliminate a disease that's long been nature's grim equalizer? And then there's the question of suffering. Cancer forced humanity to confront its limits. Its removal brings relief, but also unease. In a world without one of our greatest existential threats, what becomes of struggle, of empathy, of the depth of meaning we often find in shared pain? For some, this new reality triggers a crisis of purpose. Religious narratives that once interpreted cancer as a test of faith or a tool of divine mystery are challenged. New theological movements emerge, some celebratory, others apocalyptic. A few groups reject the cure outright, viewing it as unnatural, even heretical. Bioethics comes into sharper focus. With people now living decades longer, should we begin to regulate reproduction more strictly? Should new laws cap lifespan-boosting treatments to avoid overpopulation? And if more life is possible, who deserves it? And what about consent? Some people, especially the elderly or terminally ill, may choose not to take the cure. Do we honor their choice or pressure them to live? Assisted death laws come under fire. Conversations shift from how to save life to how to end it with dignity. Children born after the cure never know what cancer was. For them, the very idea of suffering from a random internal attack feels like mythology. But for the generations who lived through it, the loss is bittersweet. They celebrate the victory, while quietly grieving a world that understood mortality in a way the New World never will. And as these philosophical storms brew, a much more urgent, tangible challenge rises. If we stop dying, how do we survive the surge? For every person saved from cancer, there's one more person who lives, longer, healthier, and fully active. At first, this sounds like utopia. But the planet wasn't built for indefinite growth. The numbers become staggering. Within 2 decades, the global population swells by hundreds of millions. Without cancer as a population control factor, the human race experiences a boom reminiscent of post-World War eras. Except this time, there's no plateau in sight. Humanity isn't just surviving, it's compounding. The first system to crack. Housing urban centers become overwhelmed. Skyscrapers stretch taller. Cities sprawl wider. In poorer regions, slums expand exponentially as housing demand far outpaces supply. Rural areas face deforestation to make way for development. Governments attempt to build vertically and underground, self-contained megastructures designed for dense, multi-generational living. The forever home becomes literal. Next, food. More mouths mean more farmland. But more farmland means less biodiversity, more greenhouse gas emissions, and intensifying climate consequences. Advanced hydroponic systems and lab-grown meats help, but adoption is uneven. Nations without tech infrastructure suffer most. Starvation doesn't vanish, it mutates, striking not from disease, but from logistical overload. Then comes water. Clean water demand surges. Rivers are redirected. Desalination becomes a global necessity. Water-rich nations suddenly hold immense political leverage. Global cooperation is tested as climate stressors compound existing scarcity. Healthcare, ironically, finds itself strained again, but for different reasons. With cancer gone, new medical frontiers rise. Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, advanced cardiovascular diseases, and other age-related conditions become dominant. The focus shifts to neurodegeneration and regenerative medicine. Geriatric care becomes the most in-demand field on Earth. Demographics invert. Many nations now host more seniors than children. Dependency ratios flip. Young people are pressured to support an aging population living longer than the systems supporting them. Tax reforms are rushed. Retirement policies are rewritten. Social unrest brews as generational tensions ignite. And then there's geopolitics. Migration patterns shift as people search for resource-rich or climate-stable zones. Borders tighten. Anti-immigration movements rise. Populist governments argue that too many people are living too long, taking too much for too little return. Technological innovation accelerates, driven by necessity. AI systems are deployed en masse to manage logistics, agriculture, and aging care. Automation helps, but also replaces millions of jobs. Entire economic classes are displaced as human labor becomes a secondary factor in survival. Earth itself begins to groan. Climate change, already spiraling before the cure, accelerates under new pressures. Global coalitions scramble to act. The same medical breakthrough that saved billions now becomes the fuel behind a planetary reckoning. Still, most people wouldn't trade the cure for anything. Cancer is gone. Loved ones are saved. Life continues, but so do the costs. So in a world healed of its greatest disease, the final question isn't scientific, it's spiritual. If we've conquered death's cruelest weapon, what are we supposed to do with the rest of our lives? Cancer was once humanity's great equalizer, a shadow cast over every family, every culture, every continent. Its sudden defeat feels like the closing of a horrific chapter, but also the start of a new, uncharted book. We cured cancer. The unthinkable became reality. In doing so, we gain time, hope, and potential on a scale never seen before. The world got louder, older, smarter, and in many ways, more alive. Healthcare reinvented itself. Economies surged. Lives lengthened. Fear gave way to freedom. But we also unearthed new burdens: overpopulation, ethical minefields, resource strain, and existential fatigue. Removing cancer didn't eliminate suffering, it just shifted it. We didn't defeat mortality, we complicated it. This isn't just a medical miracle, it's a mirror held up to civilization. It asks us, what do we do when we have more life than we know how to live? Who gets to thrive in this new age? And what defines the meaning of life when death is delayed, but not defeated? In this new world, humanity must choose whether to adapt, to evolve, not just biologically, but morally, structurally, and spiritually. Because survival is no longer the goal. Now, it's significance. And that brings us to one final question, the one that might matter most. So now we ask you, if cancer was cured tomorrow, completely, forever, how would your life change? Would you chase a forgotten dream? Start over. Or maybe just breathe for the first time without fear. Would the world become a better place, or just a more complicated one? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every one. If this story made you think differently, imagine more deeply, or see life through a new lens, then hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe, because on this channel, we don't just explore what is, we dive into what could be. Until next time, stay curious, stay awake, and never stop asking, what if?